Good morning, class. You are listening to WASA Distance Education. This is PLARHG History and Geography course. Again, my name is Jonathan. I am your teacher for this course. Again, just a reminder, if you want to call in and participate on the radio, you can call us at 1-800-465-7144. That is 1-800-465-7144. So just a reminder, we are at week 8, class 2, which means that we have one more week after today's class in terms of this term and for this course for this term. Okay, so we have one more week, so 2 more classes after today, and then term 1A will be over after next week. Reminder, deadline to register for term 1B is Friday, November 6th. So if you are new students, please make sure you are registered by next Friday. If you're still a current student, you're still considered active and you're still considered with us in WASA. Okay. So today we're gonna continue looking at physical geography. We are almost at the end of the term and of the course. There's a few more topics that we need to talk about and we need to cover, and we'll wrap everything up by next week. So today, class, our learning goals are you will be learning about different terms used in pollution. So you'll have an understanding of what pollution is all about. You'll learn about pollutants, acid rain, ozone layer. You'll also be learning about things that can upset the balance of the environment. So last class we talked lots about the environment. So today we'll be looking at things that can upset the balance of the environment. We'll also be looking at and learning about and understanding about conservation and what conservation means. We'll also be looking at natural resources, renewable and non-renewable types of resources, and again, and different types of conservation. So lots of topics today to be covered. And with that being said, we're gonna get started. Again, just a reminder, if you wanna check out last class lesson, you can always go back on my YouTube channel at jhowasa and check that out to look at previous lessons. You can also go to the NNEC archive website page to download any MP3 files and listen to any of my old lessons. Okay. So yes, we are almost at the end of the term and of the course. Very, very exciting. So I'm gonna just jump and get right to it to start off today's lesson. Again, if you have any questions, concerns, please let me know, and I'll be here to help and answer any questions. I will go over an assignment 15, which is a fairly large, big assignment. So I'm going to take some time and go for each of those questions near the end of this lesson. Okay, so pollution. Again, I'm on page 61 of your textbook. So you're following along at home or at your learning center or listening along and have your textbook in front of you. I'm on page 61 under pollution. So we're going to start things off and we're going to talk about things that can upset the balance of the environment. Okay, things that can upset the balance of the environment. We have talked lots about ecozones, regions, human interference and interactions. But now we're going to talk about what upsets or what can upset the balance of the environment. Last class we talked about what is the environment. So the environment is all aspects around us. So we're talking about the air that we breathe, the land that we walk on or we live on, the water, the hydrosphere, We use water for many different purposes, such as drinking, taking showers, etc. Okay, so when we talk about environment, we're talking about lots of different aspects. Okay, so when we're talking about upsetting the balance of the environment, we're not just talking about the impact on people, but we also need to take into account other factors. Okay, yes, we live on this beautiful planet. We're a part of the environment, but we also need to take into account different aspects of the environment. Because we don't just live in one particular ecozones. In one particular ecozone, we have different types of vegetations, such as plants, trees. We need to take into account. Uh, we also need to take into account different animals' habitats who are living in a particular area or environment or ecozones. We also need to take into account their living conditions. So when we're talking about upsetting the balance of the environment, uh, we need to remind ourselves and take into account the impact of us as humans and impacts of other factors as well, such as trees and animals. So some examples that we as humans do to upset the balance of the environment are that we cut down trees and forests. We talked about this in the past, where we cut down forests and trees and farmlands in order to build towns, cities, and communities. Again, that impacts the environment as we're destroying all the trees, which is great for air. So we're destroying wetlands and trees. Other factors that we do to impact the environment or upset the environment is that we build dams, mining. Okay, again, that also impacts the land, the way it looks, the way it functions as well. Um, we destroy, like we talked about, we destroy different animals' homes, habitats, and other living things. So by cutting down a tree or forest, that particular animal, for example, as a bird, needs to now relocate into a different environment and it must adapt to that new conditions. So now we're disturbing their environment. Okay, so think about if someone came into your home and started to rearrange all your furniture, all your clothing. Okay, that impacts the land and the environment. And I believe we got Ruth on the line listening. So thank you, Ruth. Also got Jim again. Thank you, Jim. Again, Ruth, if you have any questions, please just shout out. Any questions, any concerns, any comments? We're here to learn together. So other factors that we're going to talk about right now and other factors that impact the environment or upsets the environment is pollution. Yes, you have heard the word pollution all the time in our learnings. Pollution. So pollution is a factor, is a major problem um, that impacts the environment. Yeah, I've talked about it last class about pollution to an extent. Again, we're going to talk about pollution again. So pollution is any harmful substance in the air. They're poisonous to the environment that harms or impacts the environment. Okay, so any harmful substance in the air or any poisonous substance. Okay, they're also called pollutants. Not a fancy word for harmful substance in the air. So when we're talking about pollution, uh, we're not just talking about the air that we breathe, the air conditions, the breathing conditions outside. We also need to take into account again different types of pollution. Okay, different types of pollution. So again, yes, there are different. There's air pollution, so from factories, cars, etc. But we also need to take into account types of pollution in terms of the land. So, for example, garbage, waste, okay, that causes pollution as well. Pollution in the water, okay. So pollution can be harmful in terms of the water that we drink, could be unsafe. Um, I noticed that in some communities, they have a boil water advisory where the water are unsafe to drink. So again, that relates back to pollution. Pollution. Okay. Again, any harmful substance in the air or in terms of the land, chemicals in the water, it's all related back to pollution. Okay. So pollution, when, for example, in the air, it can spread and it impacts all different areas, again, such as the land and the water. Again, pollution affects us on a daily basis. We may not notice it, but it's there. It impacts us in terms of our health, um, illnesses. Okay, it causes um, us to be harmful. So therefore, we must work together in order to stop pollution. Okay, so we don't want to be sick or getting sick. So again, pollution is a major factor. It impacts the air, the land, and the water sources due to the harmful substance and poison in the environment. Again, that impacts us as human. It impacts all the living organisms, so even animals and trees. So pollution is, like I said, is a major problem that we need to work together as the community, as individuals, in order to reduce or stop pollution. Okay. Okay, so next we're going to talk about the ozone layer. Ozone layer. Again, it may be a term that you may have heard before. We have talked about it briefly in our previous classes. So high up in the atmosphere, we have this layer called the ozone layer. Okay, the ozone layer. The ozone layer purpose and its goal is to block any ultraviolet or UV light coming from the sun, which can cause skin cancer and eye problems. Just gonna underline that right now. Again, the ozone layer is a layer high up in the atmosphere, and the purpose and the goal of the ozone layer is to block any harmful UV light or ultraviolet light coming from the sun, which can cause skin cancer, eye problems, and other illnesses, and impacts the environment as well. Again, it not just impacts us as human, it impacts all living organisms. So again, trees, plants, that all needs to be taken into account. So if I scroll down, I have a little image of the atmospheres. So again, just from this illustrations, at the very bottoms, you can see there's cities, towns, communities, people living and such. This is the atmosphere here. And high up in the atmosphere, we have this layer right here. Let's put that in a different color here. Put that in purple. This layer right here is called the ozone layer. Again, it blocks radiations, heat uh, from the sun that can be harmful for us. Um, and that's when we talked about when you may hear about the ozone layer, uh, how's there's holes in it or there's breaking down or diminishing. That impacts us as the sun's heat and radiation generates more energy, which can cause more skin cancer, eye problems, other health. Again, okay. So that's that on upsetting the balance of the environment, pollution, ozone layer, and I'm going to continue looking at what also impacts the balance of the environment. And my smartboard has stopped it working. One second here while I reopen my slide. Yes, technology is a great thing, but yes, it can just sometimes stop on you out of nowhere. But that's okay. Okay, back on track. Okay, acid rain. Acid rain. What is acid rain? Again, this is on page 63 of your textbook at the very, very top. This little short section on acid rain. So basically, as we all know, rain and water are important in terms of sustainable life. We need it to drink in order to grow crops and vegetation. We need it to in order to survive. So water, rain, as we all know, is very, very important. Um, because of pollution in the air, acid gases from factories, cars, and homes, the rain has become more dangerous for the life of every living creature. This is known as acid rain. I'll say that again. Because of pollution in the air, acid gases from factories, cars, homes that are created, the rain has become more dangerous for the life of every living creature. And this is known as acid rain. Acid gases are produced when fossil fuel like coal, oil, or burn from power station, factories, and in our homes. Most of these acid gases are blown into the air, and when they are mixed with clouds, it causes rain, snow, mist, fog, sleet to become more acid. So, for example, lemon juice. So, a lemon, and juice from the lemon is considered acid. Vinegar. Vinegar is also known as an acid substance. Rain itself is naturally acidic, but acid gases makes it more acidic, which causes acid rain. So why is this important? Why is acid rain is something that we should be concerned about? Well, when rain is acidic, or when rain is more acidic, known as acid rain, it and when it falls, it affects again all living organism, all living creatures such as trees. It also impacts the lakes, bodies of water. It impacts building as they change its color or erode away. It also impacts the farmland, how it damages all the crops. Otherwise, it's all known as the ecosystem. So yes, acid rain affects the ecosystem. So again, acid rain can be caused by, again, us as human due to factories, cars, and in our homes. But again, it can also be caused by natural causes too, such as a volcano erupting and all that. Snow impacts the environment and the clouds as well. So for example, on my little illustrations on my slide, um, you'll see factories. There's factories. Or cars, for examples, or homes. which produces acid gases. So there's gases, so smoke in the air. All that smoke rises, it goes into the atmosphere, it goes into our clouds, okay, and as it rains, it mixes with all these acid and gases, and it becomes acid rain falls from the clouds. Again, as it falls and hits the land, it changes colors of certain buildings. Buildings become damages. It destroys trees, farmlands, and etc. And it impacts the ecosystem. The ecosystem. All living things coming together are now impacted. So that is that on acid rain. Are there any questions so far at this point in our lessons? Any questions, comments on upstanding the balance of the environment, pollution, ozone layer, acid rain? Okay. Okay, so now we're gonna continue on with our lesson, and we're gonna talk about conservation. Conservation. And what that word means. Thank you, Fort Hope, for calling in this morning. So good morning to everyone who is in Fort Hope listening. Again, thanks again to Ruth. I believe Ruth is in Big Trout Lake, so thank you, Ruth, for listening either at your home or in your community. So who do we have right now over at Fort Hope? All night? Good morning, Night. Is there anyone else over at the Learning Center over at Fort Hope?
No, just me.
Just you? Alright, good stuff, good stuff. Okay, so now we're going to talk about conservation. Conservation. Again, I'm still on page 63 of your textbook. Okay, so what does conservation mean? So what is conservation? Conservation. Well, conservation means to protect or to preserve. So if you have, so think about an item or something that you love the most. Love the most. So Knight, over at Fort Hope, can you give an example of something that you really uh, love, or an item that you really like the most? So it could be, for example, it could be your smartphone, it could be iPhone, it could be your favorite tree in your backyard, it could be your car, it could be anything. So when we're talking about conservation, it means to protect. Okay, so we want to protect something that is either in danger or something that we really care about and love the most. So every time we use the word conservation or conserve, we want to protect, so that we have that particular item or or object for in the future. For in the future. So in terms of the environment, we have something called natural resources that comes from the environment. These are energy that we can use for our day-to-day living standard. So we have two types of natural resources. Okay, there are two types. There are renewable resources and there are non-renewable resources. Okay, these are examples of natural resources. They can be categorized into renewable resources and non-renewable resources. Okay, so let's go over these terms of renewable and non-renewable and see what they mean. Again, I'm still on page 63 of your textbook. Okay, it has examples and the definition of what renewable and non-renewable resources are. I have created my own little slide and my own little definition of what um, each sources are. So I'm going to go through that. Again, it's pretty similar from what's in the textbook compared to what my definitions are. So you can use either or definition in terms of your assignment. So don't be confused, they mean the same thing. Okay, so renewable resources. Renewable resources. So renewable, such as the sun, wind, waves, the heat from the earth, can be used again and again and not run out. Okay. So renewable resources or renewable energy is anything that can be used again and again and does not run out. So again, for example, the sun produces heat and energy. Uh, Wind from nature doesn't run out. Waves from the ocean, the tides from the water goes up and down, doesn't run out. And heat from the earth underneath us doesn't run out. Okay, so again, renewable resources are sources or energy that can be used again and again and does not run out. They do not produce greenhouse gases, therefore they are less harmful to the environment and to the earth. Okay? So in your textbook, it explains that renewable resources are replaced by nature. Okay? So the sun, the wind, the waves, the heat from the earth, okay, they do not run out. They do not run out. Okay? Again, they do not produce greenhouse gases, therefore they are less harmful to the earth. This is what it means by renewable resources. So again, we got wind power. Okay, so we got wind turbines, windmills. Okay, wind power is an example of a renewable resources. Solar energy. Okay, so we got the sun or solar panels, hydro dams, waves and tides from the oceans. Okay, so ocean waves are an example of renewable energy or renewable source. Uh, I got geothermal power. That's another example on my slide that I have created. So heat that comes from deep rocks underneath the Earth's surface. They create energy. And biomasses is another example of renewable resources. So energy from plants, such as wood or animal droppings that can be burnt to make steam to turn turbines to make electricity. Okay, these are examples of renewable resources. Again, class, you need to be familiar with what the term, a definition of a renewable resources is, and I also need to provide some examples. So it could be wind power, solar energy, hydro, waves, geothermal power, biomasses, wind turbines, etc. Okay. In your textbook, some examples that it listed are oxygen, water, and soil and living things. Okay, similar but quite different in terms of the examples I provided. Again, you can use other examples. Okay, I'm just providing more details and more examples. That is what renewable resources is. So now we're going to talk about the opposite. So we're going to talk about non-renewable. What is a non-renewable resource? Okay. Again, I have created my own little slide with my own little definition, which is same but quite different from the textbook. So non-renewable resources Most of our electricity comes from power stations, such as fossil fuel, like coal, oil, and gas for gasoline. So what makes non-renewable resources uh, unique is that you cannot make any more of it once it's gone. Okay, once it's gone, it's gone. Okay, you cannot produce any more of it. Okay, so for example, like I said, the electricity that we produces, such as fossil fuel, so gasoline for a car, oil for cooking or such. These are example of non-renewable resources. Okay, because once they're gone, they are gone. We cannot make any more of them. Okay, burning fossil fuel produces greenhouse gases. Okay, again, this is the opposite of a renewable. So non-renewable are more harmful, more dangerous to the environment as it creates pollution, which leads to what we talked about called global warming. So in your textbook, it states that non-renewable resources are not replaced by nature. Okay, again, fossil fuel, oil, coal, natural gases, minerals, metals, and such are example of non-renewable resources. Okay, once we used it, it's gone. Okay, so oil, gasoline, fuel. Okay, that's why gasoline prices are jumping as time and years progresses, because once they're gone, it's gone. Okay, that's why we need to start thinking about other alternatives, such as renewable resources, because we can always use them. Okay, any questions about renewable resources and non-renewable resource? Any confusions? Again, renewable means we can use them again and again and again as they do not run out. Whereas non-renewable is that once we used it, it's gone. We cannot replace it again. Okay? This is important to take into account because back in the day, many, many years ago, centuries ago, um, we once thought that we have endless amount of supplies of resources on our planet, on Earth. That way, we just use them. So, for example, gasoline or natural gases, we just use them. And we didn't take into account that, oh, one day it may run out. So now we need to start thinking about other alternatives, like I talked about, because one day down the road, um, example, coal, oil, natural gases, fossil fuel will be all gone. The car that we're driving nowadays that runs on gasoline, many many years down the road, that car cannot be used anymore because we don't have any more gasoline. So again, things to think about, things to start conserving, protecting, so when we absolutely need it later down in the years and down the road, we have it. Okay, this all relates back to conserving, protecting later down in the future. So now we're gonna talk about different types of conservation. Okay, other things that we need to conserve and protect. Okay, conservation. Okay, conservation means to protect something or to preserve something so that we have it in the future. So, items and areas we're going to talk about in terms of conservations. We're going to talk about the air. We're going to talk about water conservation. We're going to talk about soil conservation. We're going to talk about wildlife conservation, metal conservation, and fuel conservation. Okay, some of them are pretty straightforward and pretty explanatory. Some we have already talked about to a certain extent, but conservation, yes, conservation of the air, how to protect conservation the water, soil, wildlife, metal, and fuel. Again, this is all on the next page of your textbook, page 64, and so forth. Okay, types of conservations that we need to think about and start doing more often. So we're gonna start with the first one, um, air conservation. Again, I'm just gonna briefly touch upon each one. Again, like I said, all this information are outlined in your textbook. Okay, so air conservation. Again, it relates back to global warming, air pollution, and such forth. Okay, so especially if people who are living in big cities or areas or communities with more people, um, tends to have more pollution, more poor air quality or conditions. Again, it smells bad. Health problems are needs to be taken into account. Um, so, for example, I'm going to give an example of city of Toronto, in southern Ontario. Again, it's a very big city, um, with lots of people, which means there's more factories, more industry, more businesses, more cars, um, that are being used. All this creates more pollution, okay, which is harmful for the air quality that we breathe in and for the animals that breathe and the trees, okay. So things that we can do are the same things that we are doing in terms of protecting pollution. So, for example, walking more instead of driving, using public transit if that's available in your community, or carpooling or sharing rides together, driving less. Okay, these are things that can be done in order to improve the air qualities in terms of air conservation. Okay, businesses, the government, can play into a factor as well, as they can enforce, create, or pass laws that we as citizens can do in order to help reduce pollution and in order to improve the air quality. Okay, again, all this relates back to um, killing trees, um, global warming, health problems, allergies, cancer, breathing problems, okay, so health problems in general. This is all the factors that we need to take into account when we're talking about conservation. So cleaner air, protecting the air that we breathe. Okay, this is air conservation. In other words, pollution. Okay, next, water conservation. Yes, again, we have touched upon it briefly, but water conservation. Yes, we drink water. I hope everyone's drinking water. But yes, we need water for us to drink. We use water to cook. We use water to take bath, to take showers, water our garden or our plants. Um, that being said, we need to keep our water sources clean and fresh. So when I talk about water, I'm not just necessarily talking about water that comes out of your running tap. I'm also talking about the ocean, rivers, lakes, okay, any types of bodies of water, any sources of water. All these sources and types of water we need to conserve. Okay, so for example, uh, don't dump your garbage or waste in the water. Okay, because now we have chemicals and the bacterials in the water, okay, that we're drinking and using for other purposes. Okay, we can conserve water by, for example, turning off your tap as you're brushing your teeth. Okay, um, taking more showers oftenly than taking a bath, for example. These are all things that we can do in order to conserve water. Okay, protect water, conserve water. Again, we use water in many, many different purposes. Agriculture, for swimming. Okay, I love swimming too, for example. Um, okay, so again, all examples we need to do in order to conserve water. Water is very, very important. Very, very important. So that is water conservation. Okay, water conservation. Okay, so now we're going to talk about soil conservation. Soil conservation. Again, it all goes back into protecting the land. So as we know, the land and the soil um, can be impacted due to erosion. So wind and water breaks down the land, the soil, okay, which impacts it. Okay, so we can grow certain plants in certain ways in order to help preserve and protect the land, the soil. Um, Again, don't cut down trees and forests. Again, that impacts the soil that we use and grow. So again, planting more trees and plants are very, very important. Okay, as we need good, rich, fertilized soil to grow crops and vegetation, as they have good nutrients and minerals in it. So again, we need to protect that soil so that it doesn't get damaged. Again, next one we're going to talk about is wildlife. Okay, again, we're not just talking about us as human, but we also need to talk about wildlife conservation. So wildlife, uh, they provide us with food, clothing, and many other products that you may think of. So wildlife looks beautiful, but again, they're also important. Again, a couple things that we can do to protect wildlife and wildlife conservation is that we can enforce strict laws in terms of, for example, hunting. So I know hunting is very, very popular in northern communities and around here in Silicon. A lot of people go hunting, have hunting license or fishing license, for example. So what can be done is that we can enforce strict hunting and fishing laws, for examples. Um, for example, you can only hunt a certain amount of a particular animal during a particular time of year, so that way we don't overkill or over hunt a certain species of animals or overfish fishing populations. Okay, so we need to take that into account as well, because our wildlife are very important as they are part of our ecozones. All this relates back to some examples that I included are um, extinction, endanger, or animals that have lost their habitat. Okay, and it is not fair for certain animals or wildlife species to be endangered by our activities, um, habitat loss, okay, or extinction, or they just die out. Okay, so again, wildlife conservation very, very important. As we need to take into account, care for, and protect their environment and their conditions in terms of certain animals and species. Wildlife conservation. Again, more information about trees and animals, about planting. Uh, okay, next one. Metal conservation. Metal conservation. In other words, recycling. Recycling. So today, I believe today in Sulagao is recycling day. Or I sure hope it is today because I put out my recycling today. So, metal conservation. So again, that just goes back into um, having less garbage because our wasteland, or dumps areas are becoming too big and overflowing. So we need to recycle. In other words, it means to reuse again. Okay, use it again. Okay, we're conserving. Okay, not just throwing it out. We're reusing or recycling that particular item. So metal. So again, it could be aluminum can, glass bottles. We can also talk about newspaper, paper. So don't throw your papers into the garbage. Recycle it, so that way it can be reused again. Okay, so recycle. As they can be melted down and reused again and turn into products that we use again. So again, we don't want to be chopping down trees and forests to create more paper. So for example, recycling newspapers and papers and cardboards or anything that's recyclable. Again, recycle. Metal conservation. Okay, pop can, water bottles. Um, okay, all examples of things. A soup can be examples of items that we can recycle. Okay, recycle. So metal conservation or just recycling. All right, we're almost done here, so hang with me. We're almost done here. I'll get to the assignment very, very shortly. Next conservation is that we got fuel conservation. Yes, as we talked about, fuel are example of a non-renewable resources. Non-renewable, as once fuel is gone, it's gone. Okay, so example, drive less, walk more, bike more, carpool. Okay, save energy. Okay, fuel, so gasoline. Okay, you wanna preserve it, protect it. Okay, again, stuff that we already talked about. And here we are. Here we are. Assignment 15. So yes, class and students, if you have assignment 15 in front of you, you can turn to that in your workbook. I will briefly go over all the questions as this is a big assignment. Yes, it is out of 40 marks. Okay, 40 marks. Yes, this is a big assignment. Assignment 15. We have one more assignment after this one, but it's a very, very short one. Okay, it's a very, very short one after this one, but this is your last big major assignment that needs to be marked. Okay, so let's take some time right now and to go over these questions to see what I'm looking for and how you can gain full marks. Good morning, Danny. Thank you for joining and participating. Again, thank you, Ruth, for still joining with us. And Night over at Fort Hope. Hopefully you're still there and listening. Again, thank you for joining in and tuning in to listen to PLARHG History and Geography. So, assignment 15, question number 1. Outline 5 things, 5 things that can upset the balance of the environment. Okay, so you're going to give me an example of 5 different things that can upset the balance of the environment. Okay, we talked about lots today. Okay, so again, remember, use full sentences, don't use jot notes. Okay, so it can be like 5 things that upset the balance of the environment are ... Okay, question number 2. What is the ozone layer? Okay, yes, again, I'm looking for a definition. You can include some examples if you like. More details, the better mark you will receive. Okay, so question number 2. What is the ozone layer? I got a question here, Danny. Uh, so yes, Danny, you asked, did I get in touch with Joseph, your DC in Casablanca in terms of your geography tests? Yes, I did. I'll double check everything once I get back to my office after today's lesson. Okay, but very, very good question. Okay, so continue with my assignment 15. Question number 3. What is acid rain? Okay, again, acid rain is, acid rains are, acid rain means this. Okay, I have 2 marks. Okay, more definitions, more terminology. Question 4. What is a renewable source? Okay, talked about it today in class. Give 2 examples. Okay, 2 examples. You can use my examples, or you can use the textbook examples, or you can use your own examples, as long as they are relevant or fall under that category. Okay. Question 5. What is a non-renewable source? Non-renewable source. Again, give 2 examples. Okay, don't just explain it. Give examples. What is carpooling and how does it reduce air pollution? Again, this is in your textbooks. What is carpooling and how does it help to reduce air pollution? Air pollution. Question number 7. List 3 laws you would create if you could help cut down on air pollution. Okay, list 3 laws. So again, if you are the prime minister or such, and you have the power to create laws, 3 laws that would cut down air pollution, what would they be? Okay? Then we got questions on what other ways can you conserve water. There's a chart that needs to be filled out. There's a fill in a blank section. Okay, there's words at the very, very top. Read each sentence and fill in the blank. Again, I believe all this is in your textbook. Another question, and that's it. Okay, so again, I'm gonna go over assignment 15 again next class, but I want to stop it right here for today. So I want to make sure everyone is on a good track. Are there any questions right now? I know Danny had a question. So again, thank you, Danny, for asking questions. Again, are there any questions? Ruth, do you have any question over at Big Trout?
No.
No? Okay. And you're still working on PLARHG geography assignments, is that correct?
Yeah.
Perfect. Again, please continue to work on those assignments. If you have any difficulties, call me, email me, Facebook me. I'm here to help you. Knight, how are you doing over there in Fort Hope? Still working on those geography assignments, I believe?
Now I'm on 13.
13, perfect. Okay, good stuff.